It's true that an editor has a lot more control than anybody really imagines. Unless you've actually gone through the process, not just of putting some things together, doing basic editing, but actually working on something that's a long format project like a feature film, and you don't understand all of the decisions that go into every single frame and every single moment. And I definitely consider what I do as a performance. Okay, in the same way that a musician gets a piece of music and practices and then will perform for an audience, I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking direction from the director on how should a scene make me feel. Where do I want the audience's attention to be? What's the focus of a scene? Once I know those things, I then perform as an editor to mold and shape those using a lifetime of experience, whether that's with music, storytelling, using computers obviously now. All those skills come into play, and it is easy because often the discussion for an editor will turn to a technical one, because it's one of the jobs that is kind of 50-50 in terms of just pure artistic skill and technical prowess, because you're really using both sides of your brain for the job, and a lot of people kind of get fascinated with the technical side of what you're doing, and it's a lot harder to express these abstract emotional journeys you're going on when you're putting something together. But I take it very seriously, the sacred trust that I feel I have, for example, with the actors and what they're doing, and feeling a responsibility to protect their performances, because you want an actor to feel safe to try and do anything without feeling like, oh, if somebody doesn't understand what it is that I'm doing, they could embarrass me, make me look, really foolish or look like an idiot. All that stuff, I take it really, really, because I appreciate the position that I'm in. It's such a rare and special thing for me to get to do what I love to do. So I take it really seriously. The pace of that, the amount of time you can spend and how much it's going to cost, and you can't really think about that when you're working, right? Because then you're not in a pure space to be creative, and that comes, I think, from experience of having done it enough times that you understand when you need to hurry and when you need to take the time to explore. The movie I just did, The Revenant, was a situation where we really felt boxed in based on the release schedule, and just financially we had to be done by a certain time, and we weren't really prepared. We were thinking all the way through that somehow something was going to give and we wouldn't be ready, but we just once we realized that might not happen, we just put that aside and just dealt with what was in front of us. Soderbergh, first time I worked with him, we got through, spent a couple weeks working through the first cut. I'd never worked with him before. We went through the whole movie, and he had some tweaks and some changes, and he was talking me through it, and then he's like, okay, I think we're ready to screen it. And at that point, my experience to that point, I had never worked with a director that was that fast or that confident to be and I told him, he was like, I feel really horrible. He's like, why would you feel horrible? I said, well, we hardly did anything, like we didn't really work the movie. And he's like, you shouldn't feel horrible, you did a lot of work before I came in that I really like. He's like, you wouldn't feel nervous or bad if there was hard work to do, right? I said, that's true. So don't feel bad if it's easy. So you have to also be willing to, when things are working, to not work yourself up into a frenzy, creating a panic and a drama that doesn't exist too. So it goes both ways. You just have to be adaptable and adjust. The good news for me is I get to use the director as the guide, right? I'm there to perform for the director. So if the director wants to spend time with something, I might have an opinion about, I feel like this is wasting time, or I can say I can be more efficient if I do this, this, and this. But ultimately, it comes down to if the director wants to follow a path, then you follow that path. You know, a lot of times what will happen is, as the editor, you're the first person to be one-on-one with a movie, right? You're in this intimate experience of seeing it as it's coming to life. And you've had a lot of time to try things, to see things, while the director is off shooting the movie, going through a completely different emotional experience. So by the time the director is sitting with you, you're, in a sense, you've already lived through things that the director still needs time to live through. And so a lot of it also is just being patient and allowing the director a chance to follow that path. You know, and again, that comes with experience. Once you've been through it a few times, you understand, okay, you don't have to be in this desperate, like, oh, you have to understand what I feel, and we have to cut this out, or we have to change this around, we have to move this here. Eventually, your voice will be heard, and hopefully that will happen when the director's ready to hear it, and everything is much more harmonious that way.
Takes a lot of discipline. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it is.
No,
it kind of comes with time. You know, I think I grew up playing viola. You know, nothing too hardcore, but I played in orchestras all my life, and there's a continuity to that and a discipline to that, and a teamwork to that carried over, really without me even being aware of it, into working in movies and working in a collaborative team artistic endeavor. It's a skill that you have to develop, I think. There's an honesty that there's an authenticity and an honesty to emotion that is universal, I believe. And so as long as you're working from a place where you're not trying to force something too hard into something it's not supposed to be, that you're finding the truth and letting that truth develop and express itself, then you're gonna find where you need to be. I mean, I early on, when I first started editing, I spent a lot of time editing the way I thought an editor should edit. I spent all day, okay, I'm an editor now, so I've got to act like an editor. And then at a certain point, I was working on a movie, Swingers, where everybody on that movie, we were kind of going through the same emotional journey that the characters in the movie, like we were all kind of living that, not literally, but in a very similar way. And once that happened, and I connected to the storytelling on such a personal level, I realized I'm not trying to edit like an editor, I'm just editing. And that was, you know, I remember the moment of being aware of that. And it's really important that, you know, after you've started, that you don't get so wrapped up in trying to do what you think you're supposed to do, and just do it. Just do what feels right. Well, here's what I would say, though, in reference to that. I agree that the point is, if you're able to then ultimately turn what we're calling garbage into something, I would say that it probably wasn't really garbage, that there was ultimately something honest, like maybe there was a drunken haze that people weren't aware, whatever it was that got it to be, or the energy on the set, or the lack of resources, or whatever it was, there's still something, some core of honesty that you're able to find and harness and turn that in, you know, and that's what you're always looking for as an editor, are those little true moments that you can somehow, when they're strung together, have meaning, right? And so yeah, it's true. A lot of times I'll look at some things and think, what were they thinking, and have no idea. And it takes a lot of study and meditation to finally, you know, figure it out, sure.